Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Upon Further Review. I am the coach, Shannon Griffith. Alongside me is Eric Dutkiewicz from Parkview Sports Medicine. And, tonight we've got a little bit of both of a PSA for one with officials. We're going to have Jeff Lytle come on and talk about officiating. We're starting a new year. There's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of things that have happened throughout the year, not specific to football, but officiating. And with one thing that's happening in the officiating world is getting people to go in to officiating, and it's going to at some point impact like the sport of football that uses 5 or 6 a game. So we'll get Jeff's take on some of that and get his viewpoint because he's done a lot of refereeing. He's still involved with Bishop Dwenger football. Then we're going to get into the 2023 SAC preview and talk about all the SAC teams, and as well as maybe peek over into some of the Northeast 8 teams that we'll hear in the city. Number one source for all things Summit Athletic Conference right here at Upon Further Review, and as well as Northeast Indiana. Doot, good to see you, my man, for this second season as we get started with a little better run up, I guess you can say. We just kind of put it together last year, but we should be seasoned veterans by now.
Yeah, good to be back with you. It's, the summer is gone like it is every year. It's getting shorter because the kids are going back to school sooner and sooner. So here we are, week 0, if you will, of another season of Upon Further Review as we look ahead this week. Scrimmages on Friday. I know you were out at the Snyder Homestead one, and of course, they all start for real this coming Friday across the state of Indiana, and notably here that I know we'll talk about later in the show, the new schedule for the Summit Athletic Conference, really how that will bear out and help a lot of the teams from our area, because I think it will help long term for some of that. We'll dive into that down the road as well. But good to be back with you for another year.
Well, they're going to give a heavy dose of us, not only here on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock on all your favorite platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we're on it. So you can get all the coverage from us here each and every week. Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Still working out a few things with 1380 The Fan 100.9 to also carry us on the radio network. So when that is comes to fruition, we'll let you know about that. But you brought up about this, new 2 non-conference games that the teams were allowed to schedule this year. And, Snyder, Homestead, and Carroll, they just went out and, let's get Carmel, let's get Warren Central, and let's get Hamilton Southeastern. So these are no patsies. That's for anything. Carroll especially, I mean, they're not fooling around. And then you got the schedule right there. We got Cincinnati Moeller with Bishop Dwenger. That's a huge one. And we've got a ton of that with some of these teams, which I think is going to give everyone a little bit better understanding of where they're at. It gives the schools a chance to really get a gauge on where their team is at depth-wise. And we'll find out pretty fast when we get rolling here this week.
Yeah, I mean, what's different about this is that basically, in a nutshell, the SAC has split into what were 2 divisions. I guess they're still calling them Division A and Division B, but Division A is kind of your bigger schools: Carroll, Dwenger, Northrop, Snyder. And then on the other side, you have some of the smaller schools, but also some bigger schools. So maybe I'll put it, the best way to put it is probably some of your more traditional powerhouses in the SAC on one side, and then some of the other schools that from a competitive balance perspective, Wayne, Southside, Northside's in that Division B, Concordia, and Bishop Lewis. So the idea to kind of split up the competition a little bit, but also too, opens up those first 2 weeks of the regular season for everybody, where they can go out and schedule some big time opponents. You have Warren Central is going to be playing both Snyder and Carroll. Carroll scheduled Hamilton Southeastern, who they played, I believe, at the semi-state last year. So it's a big opportunity for a lot of these schools to, go out to schedule some big time opponents throughout the state, because a lot of those other conferences in Central Indiana don't, have those first 2 weeks open as well. So it should be good for the Snyders of the world, the Carrolls of the world, the Homesteads of the world to kind of gauge where they are and then that way, when you get to week 3 and the SAC season starts up, you've kind of got your legs under you from a game perspective, and not necessarily deciding who's going to win the victory bell in week 1, like we've seen in several years past throughout the years. Northside and Snyder playing in week 1 a year ago really kind of helped determine the SAC kind of in ways knocked out Northside to a certain extent. So I think it'll be good for these teams to do it. One note I did find out with the week 2 schedule, Wayne and Northrop are playing each other. As it turns out, neither Northrop nor Wayne could find a week 2 non-conference opponent. So those schools agreed to play each other. It will count in the regular season standings, but it will not count in the SAC standings. So whoever wins that week 2 matchup between Northrop and Wayne will have an extra win in the win column, but they will not have it in the SAC standings. So just one note that I did find out this week from Wayne Athletic Director Gary Raber. He was able to tell me that. So it should be interesting for everybody. I'm looking forward to it because I know, that high tides raise all boats. And I think this is good for everybody in town to hit opportunity to play some big time opponents.
Yeah. And then a couple quick things here before we get to Jeff is he's waiting in our green room, I should say. But, a lot of talent again this year in the area, not only in the, Summit Athletic Conference, but in the Northeast State. There is a lot of D1 talent. I kind of did previews of that prior to us going with our first show here tonight, and not to, exclude anyone, but by all means, there's from sophomores to seniors, there is a ton of talent this year, and you can tell a lot of kids have practiced their craft throughout the year now and are ready to go. But we get to our first guests here. I want to bring in Jeff. And Jeff, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jeff Lytle is a referee, basketball for the most part, but he's done a little bit of everything, I think, in your career, haven't you, Jeff?
I have, yes. I do basketball, softball, baseball, football.
Yeah. I know there was a year or two there that you had some boys playing, so you kind of got involved a little bit with Bishop DeWanger in football and such. Are you still working with Bishop DeWanger in any capacity this year?
No, I'm just back to officiating. So once the Brendan and Drew graduated, I went back to officiating.
You went back for the glutton of punishment. But, I think it's a good time to bring up officiating as we, segue into this season. And this is really non-sport specific, I should say, because I think it's an important thing to reflect back on. We had an incident that happened, and I'm going to play a clip of that from this past, I think, winter, when there was an altercation between a parent and official. Let me kind of cue this up, and then we'll go back and take a look at it, and we'll talk about it and get your viewpoint on some things that parents should be aware of, and talk from a humanistic point of view about officials and what they're really there to do. And they're not there to cheat your kid or cheat your team by any means, right?
Correct.
Here, let's take a look at this. I'll get your viewpoint on it. I think you know what I'm probably getting ready to queue up here, but this is an incident that happened this past year.
Yeah, so Jeff, we played a little bit of that video, but obviously that drew up national attention for everything with officiating and fans. And as we enter a new season, I mean, just that time of year to remind people that, it's at the end of the day, it's just a game. And I know a lot is on the line every Friday night, in this case, when we talk about football, but from the referee, the official standpoint, just the job that you guys are tasked with each and every week. Just talk a little bit about that, coming out of everything that we've seen.
Yes, everything is. Everybody wants to win. There's no doubt about it. I mean, everything's competitive. The whole world's competitive. Winning is a lot. I mean, look at the coaches in the college ranks, millions of dollars winning. But on the officiating side, and you're talking high school sports, you don't get a lot of money. Nobody's getting rich officiating. There's nobody getting rich officiating high school sports. So, and you guys will see this on Friday night. Look at the ages of the guys who are out there refereeing the games. Not too many young guys out there. I mean, I'm 45 years old and I'm considered a young official. So that's not a good sign for officials. Also, we do work hard at our craft. And nobody's out there to cheat your kids, as you said. Nobody wants to make a bad call. I mean, it's just the human nature of the business. So no referees out there to cheat. No referees out there to fix a game. We don't care who wins. I've always said that as long as I've refereed. I don't care who wins. I don't. I just want to go out there and be unnoticed. I've always said, the best game I ever referee is the games I work and nobody knows I'm there. Now, I've done it for such a long time. People know who I am, but the best way to officiate is to be unseen.
Well, and, I brought that clip up for one reason. The difference between like in the sport of football, what helps referees in the sport of football is the separation that you get from the crowd. They're not right there up on top of you, but every official has to eventually walk through crowds, right?
Correct.
And what are some things that you could lend to our audience, the parents that are listening to this for the first time? What is that etiquette? What should, when things are not going a team's way and such, the do nots, and so to speak, because we don't need incidences like we saw there happening in any sport here in Fort Wayne ever again.
Correct. The first thing I always say is do not approach the officials. I mean, however mad you are, or however upset you are with the officials, don't approach the officials. I mean, football, like you said, is a great sport because you're so far away. You don't have to deal with it. And our schools around here do a great job of having security, walking you in and out of the locker room. So you really don't have any incidences where the fans can get to you. But, I mean, I always say use common sense. I mean, you should never put your hands on an official. You should never hit an official. You should never push an official. None of those things apply to high school sports.
Absolutely. And this not goes for parents, but I've seen coaches lose it. In games and such. And there are going to be disagreements on calls and things of that nature. But when you see the aggressiveness that sometimes a coach takes in some respects, it's not something that should be allowed. And I think the coaches in the Summit Athletic Conference, maybe in the area, do a great job of approaching officials when they have a disagreement about something, because it's very subtle. It's ask the question, get the answer, and then, it's done. Or at least that's my observation of it when I see it during the games.
Yes. Our coaches in this area and actually throughout the state are very good with officials. They know how to talk to officials. They know how to handle officials. Coaches and officials have relationships, I mean, They know us, they know our kids, they know our families. I mean, you see them scream at us. Yes, they're upset. They're mad, but at the end of the day, they still respect us. They like us. They still talk to us. I mean, we're not going to always be on the same page. It's just not going to be that way. We're never going to be on the same page, but they have to honor what we've decided and move along. I always say, why are we talking about a play that happened 2 quarters ago, 6 plays ago? Let's talk about what's happening now. What are you concerned about now? And most coaches do a great job of moving along and getting over with. If they're more worried about the officials, then how are they going to coach and get a win?
Yeah, right. And I think you said that very well, because Dennis Jackson, I consider a friend. I know Dennis; he's a supervisor of officials now for the Heartland Collegiate Conference. But Dennis was in the Mid-American Conference when I was coaching at Ball State, and we go all the way back to there. So you're right. We have these relationships, and we know each other pretty well. And that's the great thing about football. Everybody in some form or fashion gets to know somebody. And you get to know them for a period of years because of the dedication to the craft, like you said, officials, coaches, and players alike. One last question for you, because I think this goes into just an official's mindset. Some of the, controversy surrounding, the targeting.
Yes.
Of everything. And I think this is because high school does not have instant replay. They don't
Correct.
get the luxury of throwing the flag, calling it, knowing that they can look at video to back it up. Now, I know even the smaller schools and colleges are clipping it now where officials can look at it at halftime, but they can't, they don't have the availability in the high school ranks to necessarily do this in the real time. But kind of explain for the general fan out there what targeting it is and what is an official looking for.
Okay. They've actually cracked down on this again this year, because what they're looking for is to stay away from the Chuck Cecil hits, is what I'd call them. I mean, we're just going to rip your head off. We're going to knock it off. That was great 20 years ago. It was legal. It was a great hit, and now they're trying to totally avoid that. So they're looking for any contact to the head, any unnecessary contact. So if you see a guy go across the middle and the guy jumps up to make a play and the ball sails over him 10 yards and the guy gets drilled, they want a flag on that. Now,
right.
I mean, people don't understand that because they think it's a great hit, but now it's all about safety anymore. I mean, football has gotten it started in the NFL with the quarterbacks and everything else, and now it's dropped its way down to high school, and now it's all about safety. That's what they're looking for, safety. They don't want concussions and headshots and all this stuff where kids are getting injured and the numbers are dwindling and things like that. So you're going to see it more on Friday nights. You'll probably see a lot more calls that back 5 years ago were great hits, and now they're going to be penalty flags. But the IHSA put out a video. We have a tape that we watch every year. The coaches and the officials watch on what they're looking for, what is legal, what is not legal. So every official is seeing this. We also, a lot of people don't know this. After every game, the both schools, home and away, use huddle. I'm sure you guys are both familiar with huddle. And the officials, every crew has access to those games as long as the coaches send them to the crews through the IFOA. So we break down our tapes every week. We break down the tape that we'll have Friday night. This Friday, our crew has got Brownsburg and Dwenger, and after that game, both those coaches will send us a link, and we can watch that whole entire game. So usually it's about 120 to 150 plays. So I mean, officials take this seriously. I mean, we're not just people. We watch tape. We read the rule books. We go to meetings. We do know what we're doing. People act like they have no clue, like we've never done this before, but we actually really do know what we are doing. I mean, it's sad to say that, but people act like we just came out off the street to referee.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, and I think you hit on the great point about the studying that you guys do with now the technology advances have enabled officials to, focus their craft even more by even watching themselves, because you get two angles now. You get a sideline, or what I call 22 in the picture, and then an end zone that's really focusing on the interior line play. So you get it from both angles, and that's how you learn and teach. I always would take a clip or two and clip it out in huddle and send it off for review if I wanted an explanation on why they didn't call this or why this was called. And that's the beauty of this arena now. So there's no question about that. Last question here. If there's a young person out there, maybe a kid that played high school football but's not going to go off and play college ball, and they're looking for an opportunity to get involved, what is it they can do to get themselves started in officiating? Because officiating is needed, and it's needed badly.
Yes, absolutely. IHSA.org is the official IHSA website. They can also go to the Twitter handler. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but you can get a free license your first year. It's an open book test. So you take the test, you get licensed, and then we hook you up with a mentor, someone like myself or an older person that has done this for a while, and then you through what you need to do. Now, the only problem I've always said with officiating is you can read as many books as you want, you can watch as many videos as you want, but guess what? You have to do it. So the only way to do it, to officiate, is to get out there and do it. Now, you're going to make mistakes, obviously. So that's where you do the 7th and 8th grade and 5th and 6th grade and things like that. But the parents forget that these guys, probably some of them might be on their first or second game, and they expect them to be NFL officials or NBA officials, and they're not. They're just not. You have to, work thousands and thousands of games to get to the level where you want to be elite or an expert at this craft.
And that's, I was going to say, the thing with that too, and this is what I want to make, and I'm sorry for cutting you off there, Jeff, didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
But you're not going to start in 1 year and make it to the Big Ten.
Exactly.
Everybody wants that jump because you hit upon it. You do the 5th grade games, you do the 7th grade games, you get a mentor like yourself, and you grow within your craft. And if you're good enough, they're going to move you along, as we see already.
Yes, that's exactly right. If you're good enough and you're willing to work hard, you can go right up the ladder. You can go to college football. You can go, NFL, whatever you want to do. The sky is the limit in officiating, as long as you're willing to work and learn. But you also have to be patient too. You have to understand what's going on. You have to, everybody wants to get in there and they want to work Friday nights, or they want to work, in the SAC in a basketball game. It's just, it's not going to happen in 1 or 2 years. It takes 5 or 6 years to get that experience and how to, a lot of our officiating business is dealing with people. Can you take a person who is through the roof mad at you and get them down to your level to talk calm to them? Or are you just going to escalate and blow the situation up, and you're going to have to throw a coach out, or restrict a coach, or any of that other stuff? I always tell people a good official can take a coach who's through the roof and bring them back down to your level, so we can talk sensibly. Because again, sports is emotional. Everything is emotional. It's everything. Winning. You have to win. That's the bottom line.
I know that.
You've been in coaching, but high school. The IHSA has a great saying. It's education-based athletics. Let's be realistic. Look at all these kids across the Summit Athletic Conference, the NECC, the NE8. There'll be 1 or 2 kids that will get a Division I scholarship. And how many of those kids will actually play? Right. Not too many. Yeah. So again, if you're a fan, thank the referees for being there. It's coming. It's Friday nights are coming where they're going to get moved to Saturday. It's inevitable, because there's not enough officials that are going to cover all these games. It happened last year. I think there was 60 or 70 games that had to get moved. Now, luckily around here they didn't. Wow. But down
in Indianapolis, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct. Yes, Indianapolis had some. up in the region they had some, and down in southern Indiana they did. So you know, I mean, and let's face it, even officials, they don't want to work Saturday because some of them are doing college. There's college football. There's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to play on Friday nights. All the athletic directors wants to play on Friday nights. The kids want to play on Friday nights. So, you know, I mean, let's take a step back and let's thank these guys for what they do. I mean, we all have families. We all have kids. We all have parents. We all have grandparents. We have grandchildren. I have 3 grandchildren now, or two, one on the way. So, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, I take up I give up my Friday nights to officiate because I love it, because I love giving back. But, you know, we are human beings too. So just give us a little break is all we ask.
And another thing is, this is not just for men. There are ladies and women that are getting into into football officiating, and you've seen them, and you see them some on Sunday.
Absolutely.
So it has nothing to do with your gender. If you have a passion and love for the game of football or basketball or softball or baseball, whatever it is, by all means, ladies, you go do the same thing, because gender has nothing to do with it. It's all about positioning and understanding the rules.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of female officials who do softball and volleyball and basketball, and there are female officials who are working football in Indiana. There you know, there's quite a few of them actually. Not many around in Fort Wayne yet, but hopefully somebody will want to do it and come out and work football. But you know, like you said, it's about working your craft. It's about angles. That's a great thing you brought up there. Angles. You know what? I sat in the top row at Bishop Dwenger for 4 years watching my kids play. I had the best seat in the house. I could tell you every penalty or hold or whatever else there was in those games. You know, I mean, you know, Dwenger didn't lose too many games when my kids were there. So, but I mean, it was never the officials' fault when we got beat. I can tell you that. You know, at the end of the day, it's not the officials' fault for teams losing the games. Now, there might be a play that you think that was pivotal or crucial, but there was also a play that you didn't make on 4th down or 3rd down, or the coach went for it that also did. But it always comes back to the officials. But like I've always said, I've officiated football for 21 years, and I've never lost a game yet. I'm still undefeated. So, and I'll be undefeated again this year.
I'm undefeated now. I got all the answers on Friday nights, and I can tell you exactly what you should have done and not done. But hey, we appreciate you coming on, Jeff. And hey, thank you from our perspective for what you do. I know you're very active on Twitter, and I know even with your officiating buddies that you've done a lot of games with. Really thankful for people like you that are willing to do the Friday night games and do those things for the kids and everyone else that has an opportunity to cross your path. So thank you for coming on with us today on Upon Further Review.
Absolutely. And I want to thank both you guys for what you do for high school sports. It's awesome. You know, with the coverage that you guys give these kids and the videos that you guys make, it's awesome. It's awesome to see on Twitter what you guys do, and hopefully it gets some more exposure to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and these kids get more scholarships and playing at the next level, you know, and we appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff, again for coming on, and we'll see you at a game this year, I'm sure.
For sure. Take care, fellas.
All right.
That's Jeff Lytle, officiating official here in the Fort Wayne area. And dude, maybe I dominated that conversation, but I think it was good to have Jeff's insight as we start the year and give people perspective, I guess is what I wanted to accomplish out of that segment there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, an old coach and a referee talking, and the coach hogs the conversation. Who would have thought? No, it's great to have him on and to provide perspective, because I'm sure a lot of people in the Fort Wayne area know Jeff and know a lot of referee. James Payne is another one. They mentioned just the other day that he'll be retiring from officiating. And a lot of these people do multiple sports, multiple games. They're a part of the community. They have their other jobs. Jeff mentioned it. The Lytles from Dwenger, a family. Brennan Lytle was a really good athlete, in the most recent years out of Bishop Dwenger. And their father, he's a father, their parents, they're people who support the community. And I know it gets frustrating when you go to games and, you see where a call you don't think was made correctly happens. We're all sports fans. We cover sports. We have our teams. We root for people, and we've experienced heartbreak. You are a coach. You know how.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that's the human element, and I think that provides a key part of it too. The players are human. The coaches are human. The officials are human. And I think if we keep that in mind, it makes it better because,
absolutely,
as you mentioned, there is a shortage. They don't have enough people.
Big shortage.
And we are fortunate, like he mentioned, that we here in Fort Wayne and the SAC and the local teams can still play on Friday night because we do have enough officials in our area. That is to say, though, they are still looking for more. They're always looking for more. They do great training. Again, you can go to the IHSA website and find out more information if you're interested in that. And they always are welcoming of that too. If you see guys that Jeff will say on Twitter, okay, if you guys think you can do better, come on out because we need more officials.
Yeah, and one thing, we'll put this to bed and move on to the previews, but in all my years of coaching, 28 years, I only got one flag thrown on me for a 15-yarder, and it was deserved. So I got my money's worth. Let's just put it that way. But even I go back and reflect on some of my demeanor at times and how that can also incite the crowd, especially for the team that you're coaching. If the parents see the coach getting riled up, then they're going to get riled up. So there's a lot of things that coaches can do, parents can do, even players can do to appreciate what we have with these officials and for what they do. And that incident that I showed unfortunately happened here, and it was no excuse for what happened because you just never go solve anything by what occurred there. But appreciate Jeff coming on and hey, look, it's time to get to football though. We got to get this preview going of the Summit Athletic Conference. And boy, I tell you, it's going to be another. I'm really excited for this year, even more so this year than even last year, because I think the competitive balance is coming back into play quite a bit, and I think we got some talented kids that I'm looking forward to see both in the Summit Athletic Conference and outside of it. I don't know what your take is on it, but I think I'm ready to get going.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Friday night, everything kicks off and with the non-conference games and all of that. But I think the competitive balance now in the conference, the new schedule, it brings in some new dynamics for the SAC that has been an 8-game schedule where everybody plays each other in the league for the most part. And this is great because you're not going to have the same matchups every year, week one, where you potentially see Homestead beating a Northrop by 50, which is what we saw last year. And if it was the same schedule, it probably would happen again. But also, too, I think the success is all relative for all of these teams. You have a Carroll team that was SAC champion. They ran the table in the league. They get all the way to the state finals, come up a little short to down there. But, they got Jimmy Sullivan back. They got Hanson Hafner back. They got a lot of their defense back. And so it almost looked like this summer they picked up right where they left off. Snyder's always a player, and then with the new division, you look at a team like Northside, which is, on paper, probably the best team in that Division B. And if they could run their aspect of the table and some of the games they play, because they don't play Snyder this year. So we're not going to see a Snyder Northside matchup for a couple of years. So there's lots of different dynamics that play into it. And then, a team like Southside, their measure for success is going to be vastly different than a team like Bishop Dwenger or a team like Carroll. But, great things coming out of the Archer program all summer long with Coach Goodwill coming in. So it's going to be exciting for a lot of teams. It always is exciting week one because everybody is 0-0. And really, the first 2 weeks don't affect your SAC standing. So you get to week 3, every team is still in the SAC hunt.
Right. Well, who do you want to talk about first, Mr. Graphic Man? Because
well,
anything, if I throw up anything, it's going to be opposite of you. So rather
that's
than
fine. Well, we can,
Bucky's,
I mean, I think the question probably goes to I think my favorite in the SAC is Carroll to repeat. And what is it about them that is so good? What they got coming back with Jimmy Sullivan, with Hanson Hafter. They've got so much of that team coming back and on top of it, there's such a loaded program to begin with. I think we had Doug Dinan on last year, and he said 165 guys in the program.
Right.
And a lot of those guys, unfortunately, will never see varsity action because that's just the realistic nature of the numbers that they have.
Their youth program, I saw that they had their kickoff last night, 220 kids out there playing.
Wow.
So, you brought it up. I think, Jimmy Sullivan, here's what Jimmy Sullivan has to do this year because he's no longer the young pup on the team. He's a known commodity. He's a Division I athlete. He has a Big Ten offer with Purdue. Jimmy has to make the next step up as being a top quarterback, and that is continue to be a manager of the game and the ball and doing the right things with the football, which he did a lot with last year. And I think he's only going to get better. And right now, the Big Ten offer he has is Minnesota. And I think that may grow because he's still a young pup in the eyes of a recruiter. But then you got an exciting kid like Braden Steele. This kid, I don't understand why he doesn't have multiple offers. He's committed to Western Michigan, but he is such a dynamic player, offensively and defensively, just crazy talented. He's one of my favorite players in the SAC.
Yeah, I mean, and we go back 2 years. I mean, we will never forget that night, the first brand new night of the new Carroll Stadium. And, he was out there and returned the opening kickoff in the brand new stadium back. And I mean, that's something that the folks are going to remember a long time at Carroll and around the area, because that was just something just incredible. And he's, that's what's special about Friday nights in Fort Wayne, Carroll, and a lot of the other teams is having those playmakers. I mean, guys that can play multiple positions, multiple ways, and that only helps their recruiting portfolio.
Yeah. Well, and you look up front, they're going to have a solid returning offense and defensive line. You've got Abs, who's an offensive tackle. I think he's now a senior, I believe. Okay. These kids, I mean, sometimes they're years, but he's a really good offensive lineman. His dad's the head coach up at Trine University, but he's I think a very talented big kid. And then the other kid is the Anderson kid that just got an offer by Western Michigan as well. Here's a kid that can not only run sideline to sideline, but north and south. He is all over the field. So that's what makes their defense, I believe, so effective, is what they have speed-wise. You talked about Hafner already a little bit there. And, the Starks, the running back, I think he's another kid that can add to that dynamic. So I'm with you. I think Carroll is definitely a repeat because I think they have all the boxes checked of what you need. Quarterback play, solid offensive, defensive lines, and a defense that as a unit that I think can play lights out.
Yeah, and looking at their schedule, which I don't have in front of me, but I have it on paper here. Week 4, home versus Dwenger. Week 5 at Snyder, and then week 9 hosting Northside. So, those are big games for the Chargers, big games for all those teams. But I think, that 13-1 year ago, that 9-0 in the SAC, 8-1 the year before. They've now won back-to-back SAC titles. Like, this is a different Carroll program from the vantage point that they're always going to be in that conversation. For when we talked about Snyder and Dwenger 10 years ago, and we'd sometimes throw in Lures, like Carroll's in that upper echelon for certain now. And they had a great summer with the PSM 7-on-7.
That's right. Yeah.
That we hosted up at East Noble, and they were impressive. And they also won the Summit City Shootout up there as well. So, it's at Carroll. So it's been a great summer for them. I think a lot of the aspect of the adversity that they faced last summer, I think helped them in the sense that they use that as a rallying cry, but they're a real deal, legit kind of team where coming into this year, the expectations are certainly pretty high because of the playmakers that they have, and they should be, and they are certainly a team not only to watch in the SAC, but across the state. I think they come in number 5 in the preseason coaches poll in Class 6A.
And the other thing is second week schedule for them is they got Warren Central coming to Carroll, which I would imagine we will be at. Or
I'm pretty sure
if we're not, then we're going to have to examine why.
We'll let Brett Rump spill the beans on where we get. And I think that's great. I mean, I think that's going to be great for both of those teams, and it's cool to see a Warren Central come up to Fort Wayne and play those teams, and I know Snyder will travel to Warren Central in there as well, but yeah, so that's they're a solid team, and I think they just kind of pick up where they left off, and the question then becomes, Coach, which of the other team can really be a formidable foe, especially in that bigger division? A team like Snyder. I mean, you look at Snyder and what they were able to do. For them, just it seems like they don't have as much as they had last year. Obviously, they lose Luke Hoppert to graduation. They lost Langston Lavelle to graduation. Now we just heard this week, we heard on as we first reported on Sunday night, Dial Capone Veazey has left Snyder and left the state, moved to Colorado. So there's a lot of different changes for Snyder, but their defense is going to be stellar. Once again, I mean, they're locked and loaded, a lot of experience there. And I think, when you talk about defense winning championships, that's where it is, because I think Snyder, you're going to see the more traditional run game because they have Keydrell Billingsley at quarterback. And so they got to, run Uriah Buchanan.
Right.
I think he, is a heavy dose of him now, but that experienced secondary, Lucas Rohrbacher, the linebacker, Brandon Logan, who's at safety, just picked up an Iowa offer a few weeks back. He's actually committed to play baseball at Vanderbilt. And guys like Landon Fry, Will Kelso. So Snyder has the big guys up front and the secondary that has experience. And I think that will help as their offense settles in, but they still have a lot of great offensive players as well. And I think it starts with Uriah Buchanan and that heavy dose of run game that we accustomed to see the Snyder Panthers.
Well, right. Lucas Rohrbacher, probably one of my second favorite linebacker, undersized, but always around the ball, makes a lot of plays. Their defensive line has got the quickness. They're not as big as they once were, but they're very quick in their defensive scheme that they play. The other thing that I would say with Billingsley and what I saw of him on Friday, I think the biggest thing with him is going to be making the right decisions with the football, because he has the ability to run it. He does have a decent arm. He does throw the ball really well, especially on timing routes. I mean, the quick game. So if they can utilize the quick game to get his confidence up, and then their run game, which is always tough to stop because they like to run the power, they like to run the counter. And now with Billingsley back there, you're going to see quarterback runs. All that coupled with then what they really love to do is the play action pass, bootleg, play action pass, throw it deep. They're not your traditional drop back, passing team. They're a team that just likes to take what's given to them, and a very, very well coached, well disciplined team. That's one of their favorite plays right there that they're running. That's the power. But I really think that it's going to be interesting to see if Snyder has enough to challenge Carroll this year knowing that it's going to be a little bit later than, week 2 or week 3. So
Right.
I think those two teams are going to be right there at the top.
Yeah. And the Panthers face Carroll week 5, then at Homestead week 6, and then Dwenger week 8. So keeping within those divisional games. And then, they don't have to play Northside. That could probably be the next team we talk about, Coach, the Northside Legends. I mean, a team that had a lot of promise last year. They get 8 wins, their first winning season in a decade. And for them, it was, it comes up short at sectionals. And so It's kind of one of those things where, the Northside Legends team, do they have what they had last year in the sense of continuing that momentum and building? And I think in a lot of ways they do, because there again, you get a lot of playmakers back. You get Tay Johnson, you have Jordan King, the Purdue commit, on the line. Jamari Pearson is a name that we're going to be hearing a lot this fall. So
a really good name.
And a really good name, some decent and good coaching, and also that consistency of getting in the weight room all summer. All 5 Fort Wayne Community Schools do PSM, strength and conditioning, throughout the school year. And I know it's been a big emphasis for Northside, having the coaches in the building, having that workout routine. They had a big combine leading into this school year just to get numbers on all of their athletes, not just football players. Yeah. So I think there is a sense of, it's not just, oh yeah, we're good, we got a lot of good talent and we put it together and hopefully it turns out. I think there is a lot of investment in those players, in those teams. And obviously, Coach, for the Northside Legends, it does start with the Notre Dame recruit in Tay Johnson.
Well, there's no question that Tay Johnson is a gifted, talented player. Absolutely. And I think that, being that he's a very good safety DB type of structure, and that's what he wanted, that's why Notre Dame got him, was because of that. But, you talk about the Jordan King, and I broke him down, and his physicality when those top 10 recruits is great feet, great strength. And then Jamari Pearson, like you talked about, several MAC offers, an IU offer. How did that happen? Well, when coaches turn on the tape to look at Tay Johnson and they see another kid running around or being the corner on defense, they go, who's that kid? And that's how probably Jamari Pearson got recruited, is that he flashed on tape when they were recruiting the Jordan King or Tay Johnson's film. But the other kid is the Camden Johnson kid, the running back, that I think is another kid that can be a powerful. So what's their biggest question mark? It's kind of like Snyder. Do they have a quarterback?
Yeah.
They lost Dickerson. I mean, it's very hard to replace those numbers, but do they have a kid that's going to step in? And maybe they have a kid that's a little bit more dual threat. Bode was strictly a drop back guy, but he could run at times. But I think if they have something that they can keep defenses off balance and not always have to rely on the Tays and, these guys, then you're right. They could be a team that all of a sudden comes out of the pack, and makes a lot of damage. But we're going to see. Ben does a great job coaching there. They got a good coaching staff, and you can tell the kids are well taught in terms of their fundamentals. So who knows? I think Northside is kind of that dark horse that, everybody thinks, hey, they got the horses to do it. Can they put it together?
Yeah, Dylan Schiebel, I believe, is the new name for the new quarterback.
Okay.
Schible. Don't know 100% the pronunciation. We will find that out, I'm sure, as the new Northside quarterback taking over for Bodie Dickerson. But yeah, and for that Northside team, it's that run game aspect too. They lose Jonte Lambert, who set all the school records, led the SAC in rushing. He's gone. He's graduated. I know Gio came in from Gio Jimenez, a transfer from Bishop Luers, comes in. So they've got some weapons to work with in the backfield, and I think it'll be good. And back to Tay being a recruit now for Notre Dame at safety. He said he wanted to play defense. It'll be very interesting to see how they mix the offense and defensive possessions for him if he's out there all game, or, it'd be really interesting to see. Obviously, you have a talent like that, you certainly want to use him. And I know he's on the mend from a foot surgery earlier this summer, but he should be out there not too long. But a good looking Northside team a year ago. Can they sustain that success, sustain that momentum as they come in? And again, they're in that B division, so for them, they don't have they do play Dwenger week 3 and week 9 at Carroll, but they don't have Homestead, they don't have Northrop
Snyder.
Even. They have a lot of the Concordias, the Lures, those type of games in their thing, and no Snyder matchup this year. And they come in number 6 in the Class 5A coaches poll preseason.
Yeah, and I think if I put them all together, all 10 teams together, I still think Northside's probably a 4 or 5 in the looking at it overall, but I'd asterisk that because I think they do have the ability and the talent to leapfrog a couple teams.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Who do we got next now on this glorious night of
I would
previews?
think just throwing, we're kind of making our way down. See, I went Northside after Snyder because I thought, okay, maybe those are kind of the top 3. But I mean, obviously, the 2 Bishops are always in there as well. Bishop Lure, number 3 in Class 3A preseason poll. They don't have Snyder, they don't have Carroll. The schedule, they do have Northside and Dwenger, but a very favorable schedule in that regard, where they don't have to play some of the big boys, some of the bigger teams, prominent teams in the conference. And we're really going to see how that part of the schedule really helps a team like Lures, that is a smaller school, very good, well coached, a lot of guys that play both ways.
And they get Jaden Hill back.
Yeah.
He was at Carroll last year. He's gone back to Lures, from what I'm understanding. They got Hogue. Hogue is still there too, the running back. I think they're going to be one of those teams that, based upon the 2 divisions and playing more like-minded schools in terms of size and structure, it's going to benefit them. Now, it may hurt them because they're not going to play a Snyder or a Carroll, because that always set them up for the playoffs, I always thought. It gave them a really good comparable of where they are at. But Coach Lindsay does a phenomenal job. Who's going to be the quarterback? Always the question there. Their defense has always been a really good defense. They got some kids coming back there. So I Lures too, I think, is a team to keep your eye on as we, enter into this new 2 division type of setup.
Yeah, they opened with East Noble and New Haven in their first 2 non-conference matchups.
No slouches.
No slouches. 2 NE8 teams in SAC play at Northrop, at Wayne. Then they have Concordia, Northside Dwenger, Southside Homestead. So a lot of obviously winnable games for Lures. And really with this new divisional setup, Coach, it's one of those things where it's like they're not saying there's division champions. You're not going to have a Division A champion, Division B champ. You're going to have a SAC champion based on overall record. So it's quite possible that that Northside Lures game on September 22nd, we might see the SAC championship out of that. That's kind of the beauty of this new format that we're going to see, is that potentially those 2 teams could be undefeated in conference heading into that night, and one coming out of it with and ultimately, and the same thing if Carroll runs the table and you have Northside and Carroll both running the table and never playing each other, you would have SAC co-champions. So a lot to be decided in that first year, but so a lot to
I'm going to say this right now. Okay. There's no complaining about this new setup, fans, because the coaches wanted this and they wanted these non-conference games. So when the inevitable happens, when a team from the B column has a better record for the column A,
Yep.
and they didn't play each other, or they didn't play, they didn't have to play Snyder, Carroll, or whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just
Right.
the way it is. So no complaining as we go. Now you brought in the battling bishops, so we got to go into Dwenger next.
Uh-huh.
Probably one of the most electrifying kids last year was Minix, Carter Minix, the wide receiver / Mr. Speed. And they get Ethan Springer back. He's also made his way back. So they got that quarterback that they really didn't have last year. I mean, they had some injuries and stuff. So I thought they played pretty decently against Carroll in the scrimmage from what I was told in terms of matching up. So is Dwenger poised to make a run?
Well, and obviously they graduate CJ Davis and Preston Ross at tight end, but CJ Davis at Marshall now. But one thing that really perked my interest, Dwenger's returning 29 seniors. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's a huge senior class for the Saints. I mean, so they bring a lot back. Their running game has been a little bit more by committee. So I think for them, if they can have somebody kind of break out of that path, I know TJ Steele has graduated. Tobias Tippmann is probably that go-to back now. So you could have a breakout year for him. But 6-4 a year ago for Bishop Dwenger, after they, it was for them a down year. But I think, what does Jason Garrett and his coaching staff, how do they turn that into a positive momentum? And when you have 29 seniors and what they went through last year, I think it's for them, there's a lot to play for. Again, they have Northside, they are at Carroll, they host Instead. So 2 big home games were going on the route. But yeah, that's their first 3 weeks in this new SAC. They're going to go Northside, Carroll, and Homestead. So they're going to be put through the ringer early, and I think that'll be good for just to kind of see where this Dwenger team is a year later after that 6-4 finish.
And they're going to go play Moeller, which is a predominant, Catholic power down in Cincinnati. Name to get familiar with: Caleb Lehrman. Lehrman is 6'8", 210 pounds, 6'8". And I saw one of the catches he made in the game, in the scrimmage on Friday, where he just had a jump ball and went up and got it over the corner. That is a formidable talent for Dwenger, especially when they get in the red zone, when you got a kid that's 6'8" that can do some things. And because he's not a clumsy 6'8", he's a kid that can move quite well for his size. So be familiar with that name. And then, of course, Minix, as we know, is an electrifying kid. And I'm looking forward to what Ethan Springer brings to the table, because I think he's a kid that has the ability. Can he do things that gives Dwenger a chance? And what I mean by that, don't do the stupid thing. Don't throw the pick. Don't take an unnecessary sack. And, be somebody that Coach Garrett can depend upon on the offense to run the show. So we shall see with Dwenger as we've moved on. So we've covered a lot. Now, who we got next?
I think we can go. Let's Wayne Generals. What do you think?
Okay, yeah.
Wayne Generals, a team that gets to sectional play versus Columbia City a year ago, and looked good. I mean, that's a team that is always fighting to get that upset. And I think, that big win. And I think for Wayne, it's that constantly getting closer. And so how much closer do they get this year? I think that remains to be seen. But I do know Sherwood Haydock has said I've seen on multimedia outlets, Wayne TV and all that, 36 years of coaching, this is his best wide receiver core. Now, Sherwood Haydock is a big time running coach, so maybe it could be.
Well, we don't have to worry about that.
He's half full kind of situation. But that being said, great a lot of promise, a lot of positive things coming out of Winchester Road in this Wayne Generals team.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to mention, Sherwood's had his battle of health problems, and he had it again this year, where he had some issues with the back that he had to have surgery for, and then he had some complications from that. And he's making it around pretty decently right now. The other thing is he's running the offense over to his son. So you're going to have a new offensive coordinator, new play caller. He's going to focus on the defense. So I think Wayne, if they can get the cylinders pumping in the right way, you got Harold Mack. Here's a kid that got a Bowling Green offer just because he went to camp there and performed, and they liked what they saw and they offered him. And he's a youngin'. He's not a senior. He's going to be a junior, I believe. And then Sharon, the Sharon kid, is another player that talent-wise, I mean, again, I guess I'm a broken record tonight. The talent that's in the Summit Athletic Conference is ridiculous in terms of some of these kids that are playing. And it's going to be fun to watch. But if Wayne can get themselves out of the gate and they can do things that don't kill them, no give up cheap scores. That's what's been their Achilles heel, is they get up cheap scores and get an offense that can move the football consistently. They got a chance. I mean, they're kind of in some respects like Northside in that way. Yeah,
there's a lot of talent on these. Jacob Sharon coming back, Jacob Sharon Jr., a bad injury a year ago.
Yeah.
And surgery on the leg, coming all the way back now. He's ready to go. And here's a guy, I mean, we've said it before on this show, the SAC hurdles champion, and he goes down with that bad leg injury. And so didn't really ramp up his track season, but should be full bore. He looked great out at the PSM 7-on-7 earlier this summer. And a good kid. Wayne, 2-8 a year ago, 8-25 under Sherwood Haydock. They start out with Crispus Attucks out of Indianapolis. And then, of course, that Northrop game that counts in the regular season, but does not count in the SAC standings.
Right.
Neither team. So, I think that will be a positive start for not knowing too terribly much about Crispus Attucks, but the idea that there again, 2 non-conference games, even though one is Northrop, obviously a very winnable game, Northrop that we know, they can feel good about themselves because they're not starting week 1 against Dwenger and poof, there goes the season because you lose to Dwenger in week 1 and it's just a ho-hum, here we go again kind of scenario, which often happens with the old schedule and the way things were set up. So, Wayne is always a fun team to watch. They had a lot of success in their basketball, winning the SAC for the first time in 23 years there. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of spills over into the football side of things, because when you have success in other sports, I think that really helps, that momentum and the buzz around the school. And I know for Wayne, that was a big deal. And I think coming into this football season, they have some hopes there to have a good year.
Yeah, let's jump now. I'm going to pick one here and we'll go into, let's talk about Sparty, Homestead Spartans.
Oh, yeah.
They're coming off a year last year that's, they haven't seen for a while, kind of an uncustomary year, 5-5, if I'm not mistaken. But I watched them. I thought in the scrimmage on Friday, again, I think they've got some big kids on the offensive line. And I think that with that is their ability to run the football. They got the Fuchs kid back, but you can see their offensive line's pretty big. They've got some size to them. Fox is back. And, I think they got some talent, on the outside. Their biggest issue is quarterback. They got 2 sophomores and they're going to go through some growing pains with them. So I can't stress enough how important for them is the running game this year, to not put a lot of pressure on their quarterback. And then defensively, again, they're not big up front, on defense, which I think is going to cause them some problems because they've got to move their front so much to play to give themselves a chance that sometimes they just spin themselves out of a gap and give up the big play.
Yeah, and not a lot of loss to graduation there, so they have a lot coming back. That's always beneficial to any team, and so a down year for Homestead a year ago. 5-5, not first non-winning season since 2013. Oh, by the way, this team started 3-0 a year ago, so the wheels kind of fell off for that team, and that's not something we're accustomed to seeing with the Homestead Spartans. But I think they've got some key pieces, and keep it in front of you. Run the ball, and the quarterback situation will bear itself out where it needs to go.
Yep, absolutely. And, we're going to find out pretty quickly because they're going to be our high school game of the week this Friday night against Carmel. And when you got Carmel coming to town, that's going to be a ball game. Yeah.
I mean, this is part of what we've been talking about, really for the last year when the new schedule came out for the SAC was the idea of, these non-conference matchups, these big-time games, teams like Carmel playing teams like Homestead, and we get to see that. And I should have asked Jeff, what's that like when both teams have the same colors and the same helmet look and the same,
that's right,
and two good teams in Homestead and Carmel with the blue and gold. But it should be a fun one out at Dave Walter Stadium. I know we'll be there with the 1380, the fan crew for the 1380 game of the week, and the PSM high school football tailgate pregame show at 6, the postgame afterward with the scoreboard from all across the area. So it all kicks off once again, Coach, and it should be a fun night and cool to see some other teams. I'm going to have to do some research on these Carmel Greyhounds.
Well, they're going to be legit because they always have a great team.
Yeah.
I do think Homestead, though, I think it's going to be another one of those years where it's going to be a lot of close games and such. And, they're going to have to grow with these young quarterbacks. That's going to be the key component there. Let's jump over to Concordia. They've gone through a couple years now where, 1 year new coach and the next year new coach and, same faces with Tim Manigault. But, he's such a good football coach. I think the biggest thing is what does Concordia have coming back that's going to give them the opportunity in this setup, the way the conferences are shaping up?
Yeah, and for them, the biggest thing is they don't have a Johnny Washington. Yeah. And they don't have Eli Maddox either, a quarterback anymore.
Right.
So for them, it's and honestly, that's part of the turnover aspect. A Johnny transferred to New Haven, which that's a whole nother story for another podcast episode, is the fact that Mylan Graham and a Johnny Washington are going to be lining up on the wings together, but for New Haven. But, I think for Concordia, there again, I think it helps being in that smaller division because you can go in and know that, okay, it's not going to be the same. Like for them, like going 5-6 in the SAC and maybe getting to a sectional semifinal or some of those years where they've gotten to a regional and they were a sub, I think for Concordia, it's always the aspect of they realize what conference they're in. They also realize what class they're in when it comes into sectional.
Right.
And so there's kind of 2 seasons for Concordia. And realistically for them, I think they're a lot younger from what I've heard and seen about them. And so I think there's going to be growing pains there and just a little bit of drop off, so to speak, with the talent level. But,
they're kind of like
that's the other side of high school sports is you build these guys up as you go along. And I know for a place like Concordia, those schools, the grade schools, Holy Cross and Concordia and Emmanuel St. Michael and a lot of those places, they draw those kids in. And so the youth programs are huge for those type of places too.
Right. And that's the thing that, I think is going to come out in the long run is how many players has he got coming back for him as well as they're kind of like lures. They get put through the grind, the grinder, but then they get kind of that rejuvenation when you get into the tournament play because they're now playing like-minded schools in terms of size and stature that they're better prepared to go on the tournament. And I think that's always benefited those Concordias and lures in that regard if they don't get beat up through the grind. And now with the way it's situated, they won't have to go through that grinder as much like they've normally done. Now they're going to play Cecina the first game of the year. That's going to be a tough one. Then they got Eastbrook. That's another toughie.
Yeah.
But then they go Homestead, Snyder, Northside, Lures. I mean, if that's not, they've got their work cut out for them.
Realistically, looking at because you throw Wayne in there as well, Dwanger at the end. I mean, for Concordia outside of Northrop probably has the hardest schedule, and it's probably harder than Northrop's too.
Yeah.
But for them, Concordia, and you just play who's in front of you, and you just hope that when it comes to sectional 27 in class 3A with Belmont, Delta, Garrett, Heritage, and getting, in some respects, getting beaten up in the SAC helps you. Not that some of those teams are not slouch teams in that sectional either, but I think that's where it comes in, that kind of that 2-season aspect for the Concordia cadets.
Well, let's talk about the Archers. Brand new turf. They got brand new turf here, which is looking phenomenal, I may add, and good for them. They need it. Northside, I think, is supposed to get it next. They need it. These teams need that synthetic surface just because it eliminates having the maintenance aspect to it. So they've got something there. New coach coming over from
Lures.
Yeah,
Lures running back coach Andre Goodwell, now the head coach.
And I like him. I got a chance to I got a chance to kind of observe him at the coaches media day, and I really like his demeanor. I think he has a realistic mindset, and I think he's got the personality to get the parents to rally around and to get the kids out. And I think that's going to be so beneficial for them. And don't kid yourself, Southside always has athletes. I mean, they're always a team that you're talking about their athleticism more than you are not. So I really like what the hire, and I think it's one of those things that I think Southside could be a team that could be like a Northside, where they build it and they start getting more kids out to play.
Yeah, well, and for Southside, I mean, a lot of positives coming out of the year. They get the new coach. They get a new coaching staff, new turf, some young guys coming in. KJ Alexander was the quarterback that was flashing, had some good looks at the PSM 7-on-7. A freshman coming in who played at Miami Middle School. It's finding those pieces, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a process. And I don't know what the PSM 7-on-7 indicator of them winning their division championship, how that translates when they line up on Friday nights and the schedule that they do with Carroll, then Snyder, then Wayne, week 3 through 5 to open the SAC. But I think any positive momentum for that program is good, because so much of it in the last couple of years, not even so much the winning games aspect, but having kids come out, having a coaching staff that is buying into the process, just like you're telling the kids to do. I think that's a big part of it. And Andre Goodwell has been a great hire for them. And you're already seeing the seeds being reaped from what they sowed.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I would say about that, performance there on your 7-on-7, what it does, it gives the kids a reward for what they've done up to that point. It gives something for them to sink their teeth into on what they've been able to do with that setup. While it was not 11-on-11, but they need every bit of positive reinforcement they can get as a program. And I think they're going to get the rewards more so than any year over the last few years. I think this year they're going to do it. And don't be surprised if they beat somebody that you probably don't think they should.
That could be. And they open up with Marion and South Bend St. Joseph. So we'll see where that leads as well.
Well, I think that's all of the Summit Athletic Conference teams. No, that's all right. I can't forget about the alma
Can't forget
mater.
about Northrop. You can't forget about your Bruins.
I know it. You know what happened is the North Side's Northrops, you get them all confused, and I'm older now. I'm a year older.
You said it. I didn't. But
that's right. Well, you got Coach Bowen out there second year. Here's what I think the biggest thing there. Remember last year he got hired late in the process, and he was getting, fastballs thrown at him from all different directions with a late hire and trying to get things going. This year, he's had more time to digest last year and refocused on this year. And I know he's pretty happy with what he's gotten out in terms of numbers and where they're at in their development.
Yeah. And the big thing, especially in a Fort Wayne Community School, high school, is getting that year under your belt. Having the coach there the full year to go through the summer weights, to go through the off-season conditioning, to go through and, everything from checking the kids' grades to all of that stuff. And a school like Northrop, a big school that doesn't have a lot of people coming out for football, in that regard, it's polling the different pollies to see what works. And I think, having that, and that's been key for them too. So I think for them, I don't know. I think for them, it's hard because they're in that big division, so to speak. And so they're going to have to play Carroll and Snyder and Northside, or, those same groups every year, Dwanger and all that. But for them, I think, 1-9 under Coach Bowen in his first year. It's just been, finding a little momentum and turning 1 win into 2 and 2 wins into 3 and 3 into 4. And that's literally what it has been for Northrop. And you just keep grinding. I mean, one of these days you just hope that something works out.
And they got some talent. I mean, they got the Hinton kid that's a really good player, and the Guilford kid that is kind of come out of nowhere, has got an offer on the table from a MAC school. I don't remember who it was. He's only a sophomore. So it's going to be interesting with them and to see who else they've got coming in there. The one thing that hurt them last year was quarterback play. They really just didn't have one. And I think that's going to be for them. If they can find that kid that can give them some ability offensively, then I think they can put some things together. But we'll see what all happens. Year 2 is always your better year, just because, you've got something under your belt. You got kind of the data in front of you. And like you said, you got to worry about winning 1 and then putting, going in this, 2 and 3 and 4. You can't be worrying about too many games down the road. You got to be worried about what's in front of you.
And for them, another school that it's really crucial to get the middle school kids at Jefferson, Shawnee, those schools involved.
Yes.
Because realistically, let's face it, when you're a team like Northrop and you have not had that success, by the time at 6th and 7th grade, the kids at Shawnee and Jefferson are going to tune out to it. So it's same with Southside. It's about recruiting the kids in the middle school as much as it is recruiting the kids in your own school and keeping the kids that are good at your own school at your own school, because there's other schools out there that are looking to take those kids,
Right.
But, I think for Northrop, it's a tough spot to be in because they're a 6A school. And so they have to play really good competition all season long.
Yeah.
And they're 6A by size, but they've just not been able to sustain themselves to be a 6A program like we see.
And it's going to take time. It's going to take time. And like you said, you got to get the feeders involved and everything else. Well, I think we've made our round around the sack. We've taken a little bit more time than we normally like to, but we had much more to talk about real quickly here, I want to touch base real quick. Nothing overly in depth. NE8, I think that's going to be an interesting dog race because you've got New Haven, Columbia City, East Noble, and Norwell. All those. New Haven's loaded. If the quarterback there at New Haven, Donovan Williams, that kid has got an arm. It's consistency. If he finds it, look out, because with Mylan Graham and Hardy, they've got the ability to put some points up on the board. Columbia City, they look pretty good. They're going to have a running game, and they got a quarterback that can throw it, and they got Stratton Fuller, who's an all world for them in terms of that. And then East Noble's a year older. Remember, East Noble was a young team and a year ago. So now they're a year older, and I look for them to make a little bit of a rumble over in the NE8 this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think East Noble and Leo are back this year, so to speak. After some, Leo looks incredible.
They got talent.
They've got a laundry list of guys. Brock Shop, top of the list there.
Caden Hurst.
Caden Hurst comes in, and Cam Zeisloff is another name that you can get familiar with. And there again, another full year under Jason Dorfler, a guy who came in, I think, in June of last year. So
same situation.
Their youth program is huge for them. Being in the school, weight training, they're adding PSM, strength and conditioning. All East Allen schools are. So it's really exciting from that aspect too, because you're going to see these guys, the dedication to what these kids are going to start doing in weightlifting and how big they're going to be and fast and strong. It's going to be cool down the line, and time will tell that. But yeah, from NE8, Leo, I think is probably my pick. East Noble right there. Columbia City had a great year, a little bit younger, and Norwell has lost a lot to graduation. So I'm not sure that they can go another 10-win season, but I think in the NE8, every year you're talking 14 from the NE8 as kind of that upper echelon having the shot of winning. And that's what's fun about going and covering a couple of those games that we get to do every year.
And that's the thing is that, if Leo, we got to work on getting them a bigger press box up there so that we can go up there and cover them, because they've got oodles of talent. I mean, it's just crazy how much talent they have on that team up there. Their question too is, did they have a quarterback? And I think they do. He made some play. Yeah, he made some plays on Friday night that were pretty darn good. So NE8 is going to be another exciting year to watch that group come along and see who's who. And then, of course, the Battle of Adams County is going to be interesting this year. Did you hear about South Adams? They're putting turf in, but for some reason they're not going to have it available. So they're going to have to play their first two games at Adams Central. I think it's week 1 and week 4. If I'm not mistaken.
And I believe Heritage is thrown in that mix, because I think Heritage is one of the opponents. So, well, and it's just a byproduct of I think they just couldn't get the stuff in on time. And I certainly think it's big for them, because I remember a couple of years ago, they had I think it was their sectional game. And it was just a
horrible
mud bowl. And, that's what you're seeing is investment into the facilities. South Adams has done that. I know over the winter they had a flood at the Star Dome, which is where they play their basketball.
Oh, that's right.
They had to get a new floor there. So they've invested quite a bit in their facilities in the last year down in Bern. But that matchup, South Adams and Adams Central, is always a big one. Always goes a long way in deciding the ACAC. A team, and we mentioned it, Heritage, can't sleep on them. Another year better for them. Another year under Kolkman. Kolkman now also the track coach. So he's getting a lot of those football guys to run track.
Absolutely.
On him. And I think that's big for them. And just they're getting bigger, stronger, faster in the weight room. And just they've got a lot of guys who are hungry, big guys that are ready to play. And I think for them, that win versus South Adams a year ago for Heritage, where Kolkman got Colts Coach of the Week, really, I think, kind of changed the perception for those guys on that team that you can have success at Heritage.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. I think
yeah.
they're in the mix there as well.
Yeah. Well, it's been a fun night getting through all this. Again, thanks to Jeff Lytle for joining us tonight, talking about that. We've gone through the SAC, and we're going to have the Carmel Homestead game as the 1380 100.9 FM game of the week, 6 o'clock pregame show with Jim Shevlin, my man Doot, and myself. If you're there, come by, say hello. We love for you to come in and come by and say hello to us. But a couple things here to remind you of. We'll have some links in the description for the IHSA for the officials, and some affiliation links that if you click on, it helps us out, defer some cost. And if you're looking for a place to maybe sponsor something, hit us up on Twitter. We can show you how you can help us. And that's my one shameless plug. Okay.
There we go. My shameless plug. Upon furtherreview.com, we also have a new website up and running where you can find all of our podcast episodes, even from last year on and all this.
And it's SAC at the end of that. Upon further review,
SAC.com. Yep.
I know it's a long one. Just type it in. You'll like it because it's all of it's there in one spot that you can go and listen to it all. Again, if you like us, give us a retweet, give us a like on Facebook, on YouTube, share it with your friends and family. And we're going to have coaches come on. We're going to have some players come on. Again, we try to cover the SAC and the NE8 as best that we can. And we put a lot of time and effort into it because we love it. Make sure you come and join us next week on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock for the breakdown of week 2 coming up in the SAC, as well as the recap of the Carmel game. Eric Dutkiewicz is the man on my right-hand side tonight. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. This has been Upon Further Review. We'll see you next week.